Okay, Wodies. We're gonna start this episode off a little bit different than normal. I think there's something that I gotta address. I don't even like everybody who knows me knows I'm a pretty light dude. I'm a pretty glass half full type dude. I like to keep things positive. You know what I'm saying? I like to laugh. You know what I'm saying? I like to make others laugh. And that's, as y'all see from this podcast, is one of the reasons that I'm like that and what I like to do. But there are certain times when certain things need to be said, and there's certain times when we got to look at things seriously and look at things in the right perspective, I should say. So I just want to I want to talk about the situation that I'm probably sure that everybody either seen the video or knows a story about George Floyd right now. And like I said, I hate to even like bring this up on the podcast because this is supposed to be light for everybody. This is supposed to be y'all's escape. Y'all to come here and get some laughs in. But my voice. I got to make my voice heard and put out my opinion on everything that's gone down that's gone down today, that we've seen and everything. So if you've been living under a rock, if you don't know what's going on, George Floyd, African American man, was killed by the police in Minnesota over Memorial Day weekend. Unarmed. Supposedly, this was because he was getting arrested because of forgery, I believe. And I guess the initial altercation started because he was resisting arrest. Officer ended up kneeling on his neck for a lengthy duration, I should say. I don't know exactly how long it was, but I know for the video that I watched, at least for over a minute, he was kneeling on his neck while his hands were cuffed behind his back and he laid on the pavement for at least a minute. So let me start out by saying this first and foremost. America is undoubtedly the best country in the world, in my opinion. Okay. I consider myself very lucky to have been born here, to have been able to live here and be raised here and live here now. I consider myself very, very lucky to have that privilege to live here. Like we're top two and we're not two as a country, in my opinion. But we do have many problems here in America, and police brutality has undeniably been one of those biggest problems for a long time, and has been fatal, as we've seen over history. The principles and ideals that America was founded on allow us as humans to be able to make minor mistakes without facing consequences. We're talking about modern democracy and the justice system that America has put in place. It allows us to make minor mistakes without facing fatal consequences. However, right now, America is currently upholding a reputation contrary to the Constitution and the justice system that is being marketed to people around the world. In other words, we're not living up to what we're putting out, to what we're bragging about. Okay? Forgery doesn't warrant death. Selling loose cigarettes doesn't warrant death. Looking suspicious doesn't warrant death. Being black doesn't warrant death. Being Mexican doesn't warrant death. Evading arrest doesn't warrant death, as we've seen with multiple white people in videos before. It doesn't warrant death. But as we've seen time and time again, when it comes to African Americans and other people of color, there's too many examples of this happening. Coronavirus coronavirus has brought up a perfect example of white privilege in this nation. It's brought white privilege to the limelight and to the forefront, because for the past 2 to 3 weeks, I've seen and heard people protest and disobey or complain about social distancing and masking rules put in place to potentially protect themselves and others. Okay? We're talking about social distancing and mask. And I've had to listen to people and watch people cry about it on social media and Facebook and YouTube videos and everything. And oftentimes their main argument is, you're violating my civil rights. Okay? If you're familiar with Bomani Jones from ESPN, this is the definition of two Americas. Our civil rights obviously aren't the same as your civil rights. And when I say our, I'm speaking for black people. Okay. And when I say y'all, I'm talking about white people. Our civil rights obviously aren't the same. With your civil rights, you fight to live comfortably. With our civil rights, we fight to live. And it's reared its ugly head within these past couple of weeks. It's been pretty obvious. So a week following Joe Biden talking to Charlemagne the God and proclaiming, you ain't black if you vote for Trump over me, I'm gonna say this: if you weren't embarrassed, hurt, pissed off, enraged, or any one of the following, or a combination of all of those, as an American watching a police officer kneel and put all of his body weight on a defenseless man's neck as he lay shirtless on the ground, on the concrete, with his hands handcuffed behind his back, still and lifeless, then you ain't American. It's either that, or you just got to admit that we live in two different Americas. It's either that, or you just got to admit that we live in two different Americas. So, lastly, up to date, the officers have been fired, but I personally, I won't be satisfied until they are charged, convicted, and their punishment is upheld, and they're not able to be let go free. You know, they're not given a bullshit ass punishment like probation or some shit like that. Like, justice needs to be served, because it's happening. It's still happening. But one of the other main things that I want to say is one of the things that we need in order to move forward as a country and as a nation is we need fellow police officers to step up and say something, because there's some good ones out there, as they like to say about us, and everybody's silent. Like, even my friends on Facebook who are complaining about their face masks and everything, they're silent. But getting back to my point, we need fellow police officers to speak out and speak up against this type of shit, first and foremost. Just like we need the NRA to speak up for Kenneth Walker. And if you don't know who I'm talking about in that situation, go do your Googles. Because the NRA likes to speak up about their gun rights for everybody. But all of a sudden, when the police charge in a black man's apartment and start shooting, now he can't defend himself as a licensed and registered gun owner. But the NRA has been pretty quiet about that as well. And if Trump wants to flex his executive powers that he's often bragging about, how he can make states and governors do this and that, which I wholeheartedly disagree with because it goes against our democracy as a whole. But if he wants to use his executive powers, as he says, and do something about these police officers and put them away, go ahead. I dare you. Do it. Make a statement. But I think we all know that's not going to happen. Lastly, this last thing I got to say about this is if you have an issue, if anybody has an issue with anything that I just talked about and said, holla at me. I'm out here. Y'all got my Instagram. Y'all got my Twitter. Adrian Williams on Facebook. I'm ready for all the smoke. All right, because I already know what some of y'all are going to say. Oh, well, he shouldn't resist it. I'm ready for that. Come at me. I'm ready for that shit. So I can put you in your fucking place.